Sometimes we encounter people for whom repeating the same mistakes seems to have become a way of life. Every time they find themselves in difficult, even hopeless situations, enduring material or emotional suffering, they end up concluding, "This is just my fate." And at that moment, they blame everyone around them, friends, family, society, even the times they live in. Yet the problem doesn't lie in fate or in other people. The root of the issue is in their mindset. The Stoic philosophers called this mental laziness. It's when a person chooses to repeat the same mistake instead of thinking, analyzing, and changing. Mistakes are meant to teach us lessons, but a foolish person doesn't learn. They simply relive the same error. They feel the pain but never understand its cause. They bang their head against the same wall and then complain, "Why did this happen to me?" A wise person acts differently. They don't see events as random. They extract lessons from every experience, learn, and grow stronger. Repeated mistakes are actually lessons left unlearned. And that's exactly what this video is about. Why do some people fail to learn from their mistakes? Why does life test them with the same pains over and over? And how can Stoic thinking help us break this endless cycle? If you've ever wondered, why do I always end up in the same situation? And this video is for you. But even if you haven't, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it, because who knows, your share might just stop someone else from repeating the same mistake endlessly. And through that, you earn a good deed. If you're ready, let's begin. In life, many people make the same mistake over and over but expect a different outcome each time. This, as the Stoics said, is the simplest form of not thinking. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you keep walking the same path, you will reach the same destination." Yet many still think, maybe this time will be different. But reality doesn't change because they haven't. The truth is, a foolish person never analyzes their mistakes. They just accept what happens as bad luck. For example, they enter into relationships with the same types of people, face the same results, yet still say, "This time will be different." They let their emotions control them and avoid thinking. Whenever pain arises, they try to forget it immediately to cover it up. But a mistake is a signal from life, a way of saying, "You needed to learn something here." If you fail to notice this signal, the lesson will come again and again. A wise person reacts differently. They analyze what happens, asking, "What did I do wrong? Did I create this situation or did I allow it? What is this lesson trying to teach me?" In this way, they turn a difficult situation into a lesson. The foolish see pain as an enemy. The wise see it as a teacher. As Epictetus said, "Events don't disturb you. Your perception of them does." In other words, how you view events shapes the outcome. Think about it. Life sometimes returns the same situations in different forms. The same types of people, the same problems, the same endings. This isn't coincidence. Life doesn't want to punish you. It simply wants to teach you. But if you don't notice the signals, life raises its voice. At first it whispers a small warning. Then it becomes clearer. And if you still don't understand, one day the lesson repeats itself with enough force to shake you awake. For example, some people make the same mistakes in relationships. They are repeatedly drawn to manipulative, cold, and selfish individuals, and then wonder, why does this keep happening? Life has already given the answer. You haven't set your boundaries. You haven't thought about who you say yes to. The lesson comes over and over so that you finally learn to understand yourself and protect your values. Stoics said that life's lessons are hidden in your complaints. Every time you ask, why does this happen to me? And the answer's right there. Because you don't change the situation and react the same way. You surrender to your emotions instead of thinking. You try to escape the past, but it finds you again. A wise person knows, if you keep experiencing the same event, it means you haven't yet understood the lesson you needed to learn. And they pause, they reflect, they change. Remember, repeating mistakes is nothing to be ashamed of, but failing to learn from them, that is the greatest foolishness. If life keeps sending you the same signals, it is trying to awaken your mind. Stay calm, observe, think, and draw conclusions. Because once you understand, the lesson won't repeat. And at that moment you start controlling yourself, not life. Many people say, yes, I want to change, or I will change from now on. But the question is, how will you change? Simply saying I will change doesn't make it happen. The Stoics say, you cannot fix the future without understanding the past. If you don't realize the mistakes you made in the past, you will experience them again in the future in a different form. Marcus Aurelius wrote, your fate will not change until you change. This means life will keep presenting you with the same challenges until you understand the lesson. But a foolish person cannot understand this. They call what happens coincidence and return to the same path. Same behavior, same results, same regrets. Every person who fails but does not analyze deceives themselves. They think, this time I will be luckier, but reality doesn't change. Change doesn't come from luck, it comes from awareness. If you don't examine your past, you are living through events meant to teach you for nothing. For the Stoics, the past is not a burden, it's a map. Every mistake, every pain, every loss leaves a mark. If you can read those marks, you can guide your future in the right direction. But if you try to erase them, forget them, or say it's over, let it go, the same marks will appear again. Epictetus said, it is not the event that disturbs you, but your thoughts about it. This means you cannot change what has happened, but you can change how you see it. If you analyze your past and ask, what should I have done differently? That mistake will no longer control you. Otherwise, it will turn your life into a repeated cycle. Foolish person runs from the past because facing their own responsibility is painful. They blame fate, other people, luck. A wise person knows responsibility is not for escaping, it is for freedom. Looking at the past allows you to truly understand yourself. Life says, if you want to change, first understand your own actions. If you keep going down the same path, it means you haven't fully digested your past. And until you do, your future will be tainted by the same mistakes. Sometimes we fear looking at the past because there is pain there. But the Stoics said, those who flee from pain only repeat it. The lessons of the past may be heavy, but without understanding them, you cannot step confidently into the future. When you truly know your past, you no longer surrender to it. Instead, you begin to master it. That is why seeing your own mistake takes courage. Admitting it is greatness, but most importantly, don't repeat it, because someone who repeats the same mistake a second time is no longer doing so unknowingly. They are doing it knowingly. And at that point, the problem is not the mistake, it is you. So pause for a moment and reflect. When was the last time you looked at your past and learned something from it? What are you repeating? Perhaps in your life you're watching the same mistake play out again and again, like a scene in a movie, without even noticing it. True change begins with analysis. If you do not honestly understand your past, your future will be filled with the same mistakes. But once you grasp the lesson, even if the same situation arises, you will act differently, and life will respond differently to you. Here's a secret. It is not lack of intelligence alone that holds a person back from growth. It is ego and stubbornness. If you've noticed, the people who repeat mistakes the most are usually those who think they are right. For them, the problem is never within themselves. Their constant line is, "They didn't understand me." Yet sometimes the problem is not in others failing to understand you. It is in your own failure to understand yourself. The Stoics spoke clearly on this. Epictetus said, "To learn, you must first admit that you don't know." This simple sentence reveals a profound truth. If you think you already know everything, you have lost the ability to learn, because ego closes the mind. Ego says, "I am right." Wisdom whispers, "Maybe there is something here I still need to learn." A foolish person clings to their ego and defends their mistakes. They don't want to change, because doing so would shatter their image of "I am right." In reality, a person's greatest strength is the ability to admit when they are wrong. In that moment, you are no longer following the path dictated by pride. You are on the path of growth. Pride makes you think you are defending yourself, but in truth, it chains you. You cannot move forward until you free yourself from those chains. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone criticizes you before you get angry, think, maybe they are right." This approach seems simple, but it is hard to practice. Ego is a quiet but stubborn enemy. It scares you. If you are wrong, you are weak. Yet the person who admits their mistakes is strong. Sometimes we act so pridefully that we refuse to take even the simplest step toward change. We think that if I change, it feels like I will lose. But change is not losing, it is growth. Pride keeps you in a small circle because it wants to prove itself right. Wisdom, on the other hand, expands you because it allows you to learn. Ego blinds a person. It prevents you from hearing others, accepting criticism, and seeing anything beyond personal offense. But the Stoics said, every criticism is a mirror. If you know how to look, you will see yourself. If you run from that mirror, you are actually running from your own truth. And the more a person runs from their truth, the more they are doomed to repeat the same mistakes. Stubbornness, like ego, keeps you stuck in the same place. Sometimes we pridefully say, "I will not change," thinking we are strong. But true strength is the ability to change your mind when you see what is right. Epictetus said, "A weak person opposes everyone. A strong person can oppose their own mistaken belief." This is real freedom. As long as ego controls your mind, you do not think, you merely react. But once you quiet your ego, your mind opens and life begins to appear differently. Often, what holds you back from progress is not your enemies, life or fate, it is your own ego. Ego prevents you from learning under the guise of protection. But once you quiet it, life opens new doors for you. Here is a truth. Acting without thinking is essentially giving control to your emotions. All of us sometimes make decisions under the influence of emotions. But for some people, this becomes a habit. They speak when angry, make decisions when hurt, and run when afraid. Then they face the same outcome, regret. A foolish person acts on impulse. They take the rising emotion as reality and prioritize its voice over reason. But the Stoics said, emotions are like the wind. If you let them steer, you will lose your direction. A moment of anger can make you say something that will haunt you for years. A moment of fear can make you miss opportunities for years. Being unable to control emotions removes a person from the driver's seat of life, as if the wind takes them wherever it wants. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not events that disturb a person, but their attitude toward events." The problem is not in what happens, but in how we perceive it. A wise person observes every emotion, but does not become its prisoner. They know emotions come and go, but consequences remain. If you keep repeating the same mistakes, pause for a moment and ask yourself, am I making this decision with my reason or under the pressure of my emotions? Because a calm mind is a person's strongest shield. A person who thinks calmly makes fewer mistakes. They maintain composure even in anger, even in pain. The Stoics said that emotions are not enemies. They are guides. Simply listen to them quietly, but don't hand them the wheel. Whenever you face a decision, take a deep breath. Wait until the storm of emotion subsides. Then think, because a thoughtful step can save you from 10 repeated mistakes. And this is one of the simplest yet deepest principles of Stoic wisdom. True strength is the ability to control yourself. Life is a strange teacher. It repeats the same lesson until you finally understand it. But many people never learn these lessons because they cannot pause to reflect. A mistake happens and they immediately rush to the next one. A relationship ends and they immediately run to another. A job fails and they move on to the next without analysis. Life becomes a fast race for them, but the Stoics said, rushing creates mental fog. Clarity is born in silence. Epictetus said, a person's growth begins in the moment of reflection. Nothing changes until you pause. Life gives you a pause after every pain, to think, to draw a lesson, to observe yourself. But a foolish person refuses this pause because silence is uncomfortable for them. They fear being alone with their thoughts. Yet it is in those silent moments that a person holds a mirror to themselves. They see how many mistakes they made, what they could do differently, and which behaviors keep bringing them to the same outcome. Pausing is not surrender, it is understanding yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, after every event, step back for a moment and observe yourself. For hidden in that silence is wisdom. It sounds simple, but it expresses a profound principle. If you do not think, life thinks for you. Imagine that you have experienced pain in the same situation multiple times. Each time you trusted the same type of person, acted the same way, and faced the same outcome. This is no longer fate, it is a signal. Life is trying to get your attention. Stop. Look. Understand. But many people call this signal bad luck. They say, I'm just unlucky. The Stoic perspective, however, says this is not about luck, it's about attention. Because a wise person after every event pauses, steps back slightly and asks, what did I do wrong here? How did my actions create this outcome? What lesson did I fail to learn? These simple questions can change a person's life. Because to analyze is to take responsibility, and it is responsibility that frees a person from repeated mistakes. A foolish person, on the other hand, avoids responsibility. They say life is unfair to me. But Stoic thought teaches us, life is not unfair, it is simply teaching you. Every repetition is a lesson suited to your level of understanding. Until you accept that lesson, life keeps you in the same place. Sometimes, pausing to think is a bigger step than taking action, because often we flee from action, but in reflection we understand. So every time you feel pain, take a step back. Calm your feelings, silence your emotions, and listen to yourself. Ask, what is this teaching me? If you answer sincerely, life will have completed the lesson. Then the same mistake will not return, because you have already understood it. Remember, pause is not weakness, it is awakening. By stopping, you are not retreating. Quietly, you are moving forward, because the path to understanding always begins with a moment of silence. It is important to understand that mistakes are an inevitable part of life. No one is fully immune from them. But the point is that foolishness lies not in making mistakes, but in learning nothing from them. Every mistake brings a lesson, a little pain, a little disappointment, a little loss. But beneath these feelings is always a hidden message. It's time to change. The Stoics said that every pain strengthens the mind if you pause and understand it. When you start to see pain not as an enemy but as a teacher, life takes a completely different direction. Because true growth is not found in comfort, it is found in silence, reflection, and change. Every mistake is a mirror for you. It shows you where not to go, who not to trust, and which behaviors hold you back. But looking into this mirror takes courage, because there you see not only your mistakes but also your responsibility. Remember, every time you repeat the same mistake, it means life is waiting for you to learn the same lesson. Once you learn that lesson, the repetitions stop, because by then you have already changed. Stay calm, observe, think, and act a little wiser each time. A wise person makes the same mistake once, understands it, and moves on. A foolish person, however, turns the same mistake into a way of life and keeps asking, why me? If life keeps returning you to the same situations, it means there is still a lesson you haven't answered. Learn that lesson, because this is the path to your freedom. Thank you for watching up to this point. If this video gave you something to think about, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with your friends so others can benefit too. Activate the notification bell, because in the next video, I will welcome you with another interesting topic. Until we meet again, take care.